Imagine an explosion so huge it carves the earth like a bowl. Silence falls, and when the dust clears, an entire ridge has vanished. That was the moment modern war was reborn. In the next few minutes, you'll see how 1917 shattered old tactics, gave birth to the tank, and drove exhausted soldiers to the brink of mutiny. And before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, so you never miss the real stories behind the world's greatest wars. The front was not strategy, it was chaos, mud, and misery. Newspapers printed calm lines like only artillery activity in Flanders today. But in those trenches, a man could be lying next to you, missing limbs, whispering for help that never came. For days, shells screamed overhead, the ground shook, and fear became routine. Commanders faced an impossible choice: stay and be destroyed, or attack and pray something would change. By 1917, the war had swollen across continents. The Central Powers, led by Germany, were fighting on too many fronts and running out of men and ammunition. Hindenburg and Ludendorff saw the writing on the wall. They couldn't hold everywhere. Their solution: retreat to a new, shorter, stronger defensive wall. One that would become infamous, the Hindenburg Line. As they pulled back, German engineers left nothing behind but ashes. Villages were burned, wells poisoned, bridges blown apart. The land itself became a weapon. Across the trenches, France was desperate for a miracle. Enter General Robert Nivelle, charming, confident, and utterly sure of victory. He promised France that he could crush the Germans in 48 hours using bold new tactics. His speeches lit up newspapers and Parliament alike. No more Verduns, he said. No more endless slaughter. Even skeptical generals like Haig and Pétain wanted to believe him. Britain agreed to launch a diversion at Arras, while the French unleashed their decisive strike. But Nivelle's pride betrayed him. He advertised the plan so publicly that the Germans easily caught on. Their planes scouted Allied lines daily, and even captured attack plans in trench raids. As Nivelle prepared to charge, the Germans calmly dug in behind their new fortress line. On April 9, 1917, the British struck first at Arras. It was a thunderclap. Artillery roared, tanks advanced, and infantry surged forward in perfect secrecy. For a moment, it looked like Nivelle's grand strategy might work. But a week later, when the French followed with their main offensive along the Chemin des Dames, reality shattered illusion. The weather turned foul, mud swallowed men and machines, and the new tanks, those lumbering iron beasts that promised to break the deadlock, struggled to even reach the front. Some overheated, others got stuck or broke down, and those that survived were torn apart by German artillery and aircraft. What was supposed to be a lightning strike turned into 23 days of blood and despair. Hundreds of thousands of French, British, and German soldiers fell for almost nothing. Then came the breaking point. In May, whole divisions of the French army simply refused to fight. They weren't cowards, they were human. 3 years of horror, starvation, and broken promises had finally snapped their will. Enough, they said. No more senseless dying. Nearly 30,000 men deserted or disobeyed orders. The shock was enormous. The very heart of the French army had revolted. France teetered on collapse. Nivelle was dismissed in disgrace, and General Philippe Pétain took command. He did what few leaders dared. He listened. He improved food, shortened tours, allowed rest, and promised no more reckless assaults. His calm voice and steady reforms saved France from tearing itself apart. Meanwhile, the British kept experimenting with the weapon that had first crawled onto the battlefield the year before the tank. Early versions were monsters of smoke and noise, unreliable but terrifying to enemy lines. The Mark V changed that. It was faster, stronger, quieter, and better armed. Its design fixed the fatal flaws of earlier models, wrapped in thicker armor and fitted with the deadly Lewis gun. The British also built a lighter, nimbler tank called the Whippet, a chaser designed to run with cavalry and exploit breakthroughs across the Channel. French engineer Louis Renault was perfecting something revolutionary: a light tank with a fully rotating turret. Small, fast, and deadly, it was the ancestor of modern armor. June 1917 brought one of the most extraordinary moments of the war. Beneath the quiet hills of Messines, British engineers had been tunneling for months, laying 450 tons of explosives under German lines. Before dawn, the earth itself erupted. 19 massive explosions ripped open the ground. The blast was so powerful it was heard in London, 200 kilometers away. Thousands of soldiers vanished in seconds. The shock shattered German morale and gave the British their first clear success in months. It was the perfect marriage of planning, technology, and surprise, and tanks rumbled forward to secure the victory. For a brief moment, it felt like the Allies had finally learned how to win. But the triumph faded into mud. That summer, the Third Battle of Ypres, better known as Passchendaele, turned Flanders into a nightmare. Endless rain, broken dikes, and artillery fire created oceans of sludge. Soldiers drowned in craters. Tanks sank before they could fire a shot. Airplanes strafed from above. Shells churned the earth, and the front barely moved. Passchendaele became a word for madness itself. Months of agony, hundreds of thousands of casualties. Foreground so destroyed it barely existed anymore. Yet from disaster, innovation kept rising. Visionary officers like JFC Fuller began to imagine how tanks could be used not as scattered support but as a concentrated spearhead. His ideas found their test later that year at Cambrai. There, the British unleashed a surprise massed tank assault that shattered the Hindenburg Line, proving that armor, when used correctly, could finally break the deadlock that had claimed millions. The age of trench warfare was dying. The age of mechanized war was being born. And just as the British perfected their tanks, Germany began crafting its own massive steel beasts, designed to counter the Allied advance. The battlefield was evolving from men and horses to machines and engines. From this point forward, the tank would not just support the infantry would exist to support the tank. By the end of 1917, the world's armies had changed forever. Strategy met industry, and courage met machinery. War was no longer fought by men alone, but by the inventions they created to survive it. The tank, once doubted and ridiculed, had become the symbol of a new kind of warfare, one that would shape the century to come. If you've enjoyed this cinematic journey into the birth of the modern battlefield, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next episode, where we follow the tanks of 1918 as they help bring the Great War to its end.